Assalamu alaikum. So now let me give you a quick overview of the circuit diagram. We're using port B, port F and port D of the TVC board. We have a 16x2 LCD display. It means it has 2 rows and 16 columns. The LCD display has 16 pins. The first is the VSS pin, which is connected to the ground pin of the TIVA. And then we have the VDD pin, which is connected to the VBus 5 volts of the TIVA. And then we have the V0 pin. The V0 pin is the LCD contrast pin and it is connected to the 10K potentiometer. Then we have a resistor select pin, which is connected to the PF1 pin. And then we have read write pin, which is connected to the PF2 pin, and then we have enable pin, which is connected to the PF3 pin of the TVC board. These 3 pins are the control pins. And then from DB0 to DB7 we have 8 data pins that are connected to the pin B0 to B7. And then we have backlight A pin, which is connected to the VBus, and then we have backlight K pin, which is connected to the ground. In the DS1307 module, the VCC pin is connected to the VBus and the ground pin is connected to the ground pin of the TVC board. It has an external 3 volt coin cell and a 32.768 kHz frequency crystal. The SCL serial clock pin is connected to the PD0 pin and the serial data pin SDA pin is connected to the PD1 of the TVC board. So now let's talk about how our project works. First we power up our TIVA from the laptop and then we load the code. The general date and time that is already initialized in the code gets printed on the LCD display. So we can update the date and time by using switch 1 and switch 2 of the TVC board. On the other hand, our microcontroller communicates with the DS1307 module via I2C or I2C bus interface. As we're using I2C3, that's why we're using PD0 and PD1 pin. The PD0 is connected to the serial clock pin and the PD1 is connected to the serial data pin of the module. The module also has a 3 volt coin cell that powers it externally. So when we disconnect the TIVA, our clock will keep on running in the module externally. So when we reconnect the TIVA, the date and time will get displayed on the LCD display. And as long as the TIVA was out, the time will be displayed with the same delay. Now let's get a quick overview of the code. First one including the header files and the libraries. The first one is the TM4C123GH6PM.h header file which we have included. It contains all the macros which we'll use in our code. And then we have included stdio.h library, and then we have the string.h library, and then we have stdlib.h library. We have also made I2C.h function, we're calling it here. We have defined 2 macros, stenable and given it value 0x01 and then streload and given it value 16 mega. Then we have defined some variables of integer data type, date, month, year, hours, minutes, seconds, s, and given them random values so that when we run our code, this date and time will be printed on the LCD display. Unsigned char register address is equal to 0x00. This is for the I2C portion and we will discuss it shortly. First of all, let me give you a quick overview of the clock code. We have void disable interrupts, void enable interrupt function. As it is visible from their name, these functions are used to disable or enable interrupts. The main reason to use this is to run a security check. In the startup.s file, we make copies of these 2 functions. The disable interrupt function set parameters to disable the interrupts, and the enable interrupt function clears the parameters to enable interrupts. Moving back, we have the delay function. So when we break a register or interrupt, suppose we break 60 clock register into disassembly window, it will break into 4 disassembly instructions. So we know that a clock is of 16 megahertz, so we divide it by 4 and multiply it 1 millisecond to get a delay of 1 millisecond. As you can see, we have a clock of 16 megahertz. We'll multiply it by 1 millisecond and we divide it by 4 because in the disassembly window we have our normal register breaks into 4 instructions. So we'll get 4000. This delay function is for 1 millisecond. Moving forward, here we are initializing the ports. We have made a function called port init. We are initializing the port B and port F. The port B is for the data pins and the port F is for the control pins. First of all, we are initializing the clock, enabling the clock for both the ports. As you can see, F1 and B is the second bit, and we're making it 1. It gives value 0x22. So we have enabled the clock for port B and port F. These 3 semicolons help us stabilize our clock. Then we have unlocked the port B. And we're using all the ports, so we have unlocked all the pins, and we are making the alternate function and port control 0 because we are only using it for GPIO purpose. And then we're making a digitally enabled pin 0x giving it value 0x55 because we are using all the pins. and then we're giving direction to all the pins 0x55. Moving on, we have done the same for the port F. We have unlocked the port F, and then we are using all of the pins. We are making the alternate function select and port control 0 because we're only using for GPIO purpose. And then we have enabled digital, we have digital enable all the pins. Where PF0 and PF4 are the input pins and PF3 and PF1 are the output pins. So we have enabled pull-ups on the PF0 and PF1 because these are the input pins. Moving on to the next function, we have void LCD send command function. Init unsigned int command. As we know that we have register select, read write and enable. So for a command, our register select is 0 and we're only writing on the LCD, so our read write will also be 0. As you can see from the first two commands, our register select is 0. We have made a mask and took an AND to make it 0. And then we're sending the command variable to the port B. Now we're making the enable 1 and after some delay we're making the enable 0 and then we're making the enable 1 again after some delay. We're doing this because this is a requirement of the LCD. Our LCD works on this principle. So when we enable the when we have made the enable 1, our output will be displayed on the LCD. And then comes the LCD send function. In it, as we are sending the data, our register select will be 1. As you can see, we have took OR of 0x02 and made a register select 1. Our read write pin will remain 0 because we're only writing and we're not reading anything. Then we'll send the data to port B. Again we're making the enable 1 and after some delay we're making it 0 and again we're making it 1. Then comes our function of LCD init. First of all, we're making the GPIO port F data register 0x00. We are making the GPIO port of data register 0. And after some delay, we're sending the command LCD send command 0x38. This command tells us that it has 8-bit data interface, 2 lines, and 5x8 font. It means that we can use both the rows of the LCD display with a font size of 5x8. And then comes our LCD send command, and then we're sending a command, and then we're using the LCD send command 0x10. This is for the shift cursor position to the left. It will shift our cursor to the most left of the LCD. And then we have the LCD send command 0x0f. This will make a display on. It will make the cursor on and it will start blinking. And then we have the 0x06 LCD command send command. It will shift the cursor to the right. It will increment in the cursor after every character is printed. And then we have the LCD clear function. In this function we're making the LCD clear and we're returning it to the home. We have written these values by using the table that is provided in our book in chapter 8. And then comes our function of LCD go to XY. First of all, we have unsigned char row start address. We can use 0x80 0xC0. As we know that 0x80 move the cursor to the start of the first line and 0xC0 will move the cursor to the start of the second line. But if we want to move to a different column, then we'll use this command. Suppose we want to move to the second row and fourth column, then we'll use this command. We'll define that we want to use second row and fourth column and we can move on it. And then comes the function of LCD send string. This function writes character string to the LCD display. We have defined a pointer of type character. As we know that our data can only be printed on the LCD in the forms of character. So our loop will keep on running until our complete string is printed on the LCD display. After every character, there will be an increment and the loop will keep on running until the complete string is printed. And then we have integer to string function. This function will convert the integer to character string. So because our LCD can only display in the form of characters, and we cannot directly send integers to the LCD. And then we have the void SysTick handler function. In this, first of all, we are using the if statement, and as we have defined the variable s here. So if s is equal to 0, our LCD will get clear and our seconds will start incrementing. And when our seconds will become equal to 60 or greater than 60, then our second will jump, then our second will move back to 0, and then minutes will get incremented. The same is another, we are using the same if statement for the minutes. If our minutes will be equal to, after the increment, if our minutes will be equal to 60 or greater than 60, then it will move back to 0, and our all will get intermittent, and our hours will get incremented. First our seconds will get incremented, then the minutes, and then the hours. And then we have the void system init function. In this function we are making the control register 0 first of all, as we have defined all these values, as we have defined both these macros st enable and st reload. So we're using these macros here. We're making the clock register clearing control register 0, and then we're giving the reload values, which is 16 mega, and we are minusing and we're decrementing it by 1, and then we're making the NVIC ST current register 0. As we're dealing with interrupts, as we are handling interrupts, we will use control register 0 Now comes our main function. First of all, we're calling the port init function, then the LCD init function, LCD clear function, LCD sysdig init function. In the beginning, we are writing the name of the project and the roll numbers. As you can see, these two will get printed on the LCD display, and then we're using a delay and we're clearing the LCD. Then comes a while loop. First of all, here our enable gets 1, and in the first row, first column, our date will get printed, and the value that is stored in the date that is defined in the start will get printed on the LCD. The same for the month and the same for the years. And then the cursor will move to the second row, first column, and the time will get printed. This is move to the second row and first column, and the time will get printed because the values we have already defined in the start. Moving on, then we can also edit or update our time. So to get the clock into settings mode, we'll press switch 2. When the switch 2 will press active low, then our clock will move into settings mode. As you can see, this will get printed on the screen. We will move to the next settings, and again to the next, and if we press the switch 2 again, then we will move to the next settings. First we will move to the set date setting, and if we press switch 2 again, then we'll move to the set month settings, and again then we'll move to the set year settings, and so on till the set minute settings. If we have pressed switch 2 and then we press switch 1, then we can update the date, time, etc. also. So suppose we have pressed switch 2, we have entered the set date, and then we press switch 1. So our date will get updated. As you can see here, our date will get updated. As here we're using another if statement. If our date gets greater than 31, then our date will go back to 0, and the loop starts again. Then we will press switch 2 again to move to the next settings, and then if you press switch 1 again, then we can increment or update the month also. The same, we are using another if statement. If the month get greater or equal to 12, then we can greater than equal to 12, then it will move back to 0, and we can start over again. We'll press switch 2 again to move to the next settings, that is the set year, and we'll press switch 1 again to update the year if we want to. Again, if the years get greater than 9999, then it will move back to 1, and the loop will start again. Then we press switch 2 again to go to the next settings, and that is the set hours. And then when we have pressed switch 2 and we have entered the set hour settings, then we press switch 1 again to update the hours. If our hours get greater than or equal to 24, then it will move back to 0, and the loop starts over again. And the same is for the minutes. If we press switch 2, then our settings will move to the set minute settings, and then we press switch 1, then our minutes will get incremented or updated. And as you can see, they're all the number of times you press the switch, a case get updated. And when all the cases are fully satisfied, then we press the switch 2 again, and it will check there is no case, no setting is left, and it will be, and then our clock will get updated. So the last portion of our main function is the I2C call function. For here we are initializing the I2C3 module because we are using the 3 module, I2C3 module. We are using I2C3 module. We have initialized, we have call of I2C init function here, and then we are configuring the RTC chip to turn on the clock. By using this function, we will send the data to the RTC chip, and in this loop, and we're calling here a loop, here are seconds I2C receive data. The seconds are a slave module, slave device will receive the data from the master device, and it will store it. So now let's move to the I2C portion. In the I2C header file, we have defined all the macros that we were going to use in the I2C.c file. So first of all, we have the clock gating control related registers. We are using the port D, so that's why we have defined these macros for the clock control and the I2C3 clock control and port D clock control. Then we have the I2C base address and register definitions, and then we have defined the macros for I2C interrupt configuration register definitions, GPIO port D alternate function configurations, I2C bit field definitions, and then I2C command definitions for control register. We have also defined the function prototypes here. We have I2C init function, I2C receive data function, and I2C send data function. Now moving to the I2C.c file, where we have defined all the functions. First of all, we have the I2C init function. In the first step, we have enabled the clock for the I2C for the port D, as we're using port I2C3, so we're using port D. Enable the clock for port D, and then we have enabled the clock for I2C3, and then we have digitally enabled the PD0 and PD1 pin because our I2C is on PD0 and PD1 pin. Then we configure the port D pin 0 and P1 as I2C3. GPIO port D alternate function select 3. As you can see that pin PD0 and PD1 are only used here. So that's why our first and second bit will get 1. The rest of the bits will get 0. So we get 0x03. My mistake. And then we have port control the same by using the table, and we're making the open drain SD-PD1 as open drain, and we're giving it value 2 because our second bit is PD1. And then we're configuring our microcontroller as master device. I2CM configure R is equal to 0x0010. Enable I2C3 as master function, and then we are defining the time period for the master function. Then comes our I2C receive data function. In this function, we have defined a variable unsigned chart and given it value 0. First of all, we are waiting for the master to become idle, so we're checking its status register and busy flag register. Then we configure slave address for the write operations data and control. So we're checking the slave, and we're writing operations on it and data on it. And then we're using this I2CM data register command, and we are writing, and this is used to write data. And then we have I2CM control register is equal to CMD single send. This is used to send the command to the that is going to be performed. And then we have and then we're waiting for the master to perform the previous task, and then we configure the slave address for the read operation, and then we want the command to be performed, executed, and we'll wait until the master is done, and then we'll read the data that is received. Moving to the next function, that is I2C send data function. First of all, we are again waiting for the master to become idle, as we are checking its status register flag and busy status flag, and then we configure the slave address for write operations data and control. the same as the received data. And then we are I2C master data register is equal to, and we are making the I2C master data register is equal to data register because we want to write data on it. And then we want the command to be performed. Again, we're waiting for the master to perform the previous task. Here let me explain you that our microcontroller T1C board is the master device and the DS1307 module is the slave device. So the next command is configure the data to be written on and send command. And then we're waiting for the master to become idle, and then when the master has completed sending all the data that is printed on the LCD to the DS1307 module, we can wait, and then the data has been stored in the I2C3 and then the data has been stored into the module. So here when our data when a clock will get when a T1 will get disconnected from the laptop, our clock, by using the send data command function, our clock will keep on running in the external DS1307 module, which will be powered by a 3-volt coin cell. And then we will reconnect it the received data by using the receive data function. The data will be displayed on the LCD display, and as long as the T1 was out, the data will be displayed on the LCD for the same delay. So now we will run the code and see the output. First of all, we'll build the code. As you can see, there are no errors. Then we'll load the code into the T1. Flash load finished. So we'll check the output on the LCD display. As you can see, the date and time are visible on the LCD display. Now we'll update our time and date. To get the clock into settings mode, we'll press switch 2. As you can see, the clock has entered settings mode. We'll press switch 1 to change the date. We'll again press switch 2 to get to the next settings. Switch 1 again to change the month. Then switch 2 again to go to the next settings. Switch 1 again to change the year. Switch 2 again. Again for the minutes. And our date and time are now updated. As you can see, so now we'll disconnect the T1 from the laptop. Disconnected the T1 from the laptop, and our clock will keep on running in the external DS1307 module via I2C communication, and we will observe the time with some delay on the LCD display when we will reconnect it. We have reconnected the T1 with the laptop, and the clock kept on running in the external DS1307 module. As you can see, the time has been shown on the LCD display after some delay. This is the code for the lab tasks that were assigned to us. Our first task was to configure SysTick timer to generate interrupt after every 1 millisecond. For that, we have created a function SysTick in it. First of all, we're clearing the control register and making the timer label bit equal to 0. We are doing it by taking mask of the value 0x01 and taking AND of it. Then we're selecting the appropriate value for the reload register because it will help us generate an interrupt after every 1 millisecond. We know that our clock operates on 16 MHz, so we'll multiply it with 1 millisecond to get the count for 1 millisecond. We get the value 16,000, so we subtract 1 from it. Then we're setting the current register value equal to 0, and then we're setting the control register value equal to 0x7. We're doing it by making the bit 0, bit 1 and bit 2 equal to 1. By doing this, by making the value 0x7, we're also handling the interrupts. Our second task was to define SysTick handler routine count number of 1 millisecond elapsed. For that, we have defined two variables, counter and millisecond of data type integer, and we have assigned the value 0. We have made a function SysTick handler. In it, first our counter is getting incremented, and we had applied a if condition. In the condition, if the counter is greater than or equal to 1000, our second variable ms gets added by 1000. 1000 is added in the second variable ms, and our counter gets again 0, and we print the milliseconds, number of milliseconds by uart printnum command. We'll talk about this command and the latter commands in the latter part of the code. Our third task was to configure UART0, PA0, PA1 with baud rate 9600, 2 stop bits and no parity. For that, we have made functions. First of all, we have made a function UART port in it. In it, we are enabling the clock for the port A, and then we have put 3 semicolons for the clock to stabilize. Then we unlock the port, and then we're unlocking all the pins. As we're using only PA0 and PA1 pins, that's why we're only digitally labeling these 2 pins, and we're giving it value 0x03. So as we are using the alternate function select, that's why we're giving the value to port a alternate function select or register equal to 0x03, because we're using PA0, PA1 pins as UART0. And then for the GPIO port a port control register, we are using the PA0, PA pin as the UART transmission pin and the reception pin. So by using the table from the chapter 8, we are giving the value 0x11. And the second function after it is we have made is UART peripheral init. For that we have first enabled the clock for the UART by using this command sysdig control rcdc UART r and given it value 0x01. We have again put 3 semicolons for the clock to stabilize. Then we have enabled the clock for the port A and again semicolons for the clock to stabilize. And then we have given the value CTR R is equal to 0. And then we have set the CTR R register equal to 0. So we know the formula that frequency is divided by 16 into baud rate. So we know our clock is of 16 megahertz. We have frequency 16 megahertz. So we divide it by 16. So we divide 16 mega by 16 multiplied by the baud rate, that is 9600, and we get the value 104.166. So we'll put 104 value in integer baud rate register. For the fractional baud rate register, we'll multiply the 104.1. We'll multiply the fractional part of the above value with 64. As you can see, we get 10 value, so we'll put 10 here. The second is the LCRH register. So as in the task, we were assigned that 9600 baud rate, 2 stop bits, no parity. So if there is no data bit given, no data bit defined, so we'll take 8 bit data, and 2 stop bits parity is already 2 stop bits is already defined, no parity. So by using the table from the UART of chapter 8, we know that though there is no parity, so we'll make the parity bit 0, and there is 2 stop bits, so we'll make the stop bit 1, and the pin 5 and pin 6 that are for the data bit pins, pin 5 and pin 6, so we'll make it 1 1. So we'll get the value 0 1 1 0 1 1 0. So this we get 6 and this gives us 8. So we'll get value 0x68. Then we're calling the UART port init function that was defined above. And then we are making the UART CTR register equal to 0x301. We are doing it by making the TX, RX and UART enable pin 1. We know that the RX pin is 9, RX is 9 bit and TX is the 8 bit and the UART enable is the first bit. So when we convert it into the hex, we'll get 0x301 value. And the last task was to define a routine function that prints first working and the second is millisecond elapsed. To print that, we'll have to define some functions. First of all, we'll define the function UART send character. In it, we are defining a character type ch. We are defining a ch character. Sorry. And we are applying a condition while UART flag register, and we're taking the AND of it with 0x80 value, and if it is not equal to 0x80, then we are printing UART, then we're sending UART data register equal to character. Here 0x80 is the TX FIFO empty. The next we're making the function is UART void UART print num. So let me tell you that our serial interface does not print numbers, integers, it only prints characters. So for that, so in order to print numbers, we have to convert the integers into ASCII values first, and then we'll send it to the serial interface. So in this function, first of all, we're declaring a variable integer I, and we're unsigned integer 8-bit integer num16, and again an unsigned count equal to 0. We're applying a if condition. If n is equal to 0, then we're sending the data register equal to 0 and return. But if our while is greater, we're again applying a while statement that n is greater than 0, then if there is an integer, so first we have to convert it into the ASCII value. So for that, we're taking the remainder of the value and adding 48, and then we're incrementing in it. This portion is for the conversion of integer into the ASCII value. In this loop, we are taking the AND of the UART flag register with 0x80, and if it's not equal to 0x80, then we're sending the num I to UART data register. Here again 0x80 is tx FIFO empty. The next function is the UART print string. It is the same as the LCD. In it we have defined a pointer of type char. We know that we can only send a character at a time. So in order to send or print the whole string, we have to keep on incrementing the pointer. We have applied a loop, a while loop. So it will increment in the value of the pointer unless the whole string is printed. So now let's build the project and see the output. The object has built, loaded. As you can see, 1000 working millisecond elapsed, 2000 millisecond working elapsed, 4000, 5000, 6000. After every 1000 millisecond, we are getting the statement as it was required in the task.